One. Yes, hear me now. That's right. We're riding 4 deep today, but Big Law could not make it. So today we have a special guest with us, Curious Jay, a resident flat earther, and he's going to school all of you infidels. But right now, it's the one-man army, 4 strong. I've never been taken out. I keep MCs looking out. I'm dropped science like Cosby dropping ladies, enough to make an MC go crazy. Energy building, taking all types of medicine. Your ass thought you were better than the Conspiracy Horsemen, but we keep planets in orbit while we're becoming with deeper than more shit, infidels. That's right. So hear me now, morons. It's Hacker Hamin. It's Big Stevie Cool, the Greek God Papadon, and the newest 4th horseman, Curious Jay, riding on all of you infidels on today on the flattest plane we have, the flat earth. So sit back and prepare to have your minds crushed, infidels. YOLO.
Woo.
Yes, we're back, you guys. That's right. Conspiracy Horsemen ride again. Shout out to Big Sal. He wanted to make it today, but he was, doing some good work out there, so he just wasn't. But maybe he'll do a run-in later. You never know if he gets home in time. But we were kind of pumped. We had one episode kind of planned, but we pushed that because we were able to get this guest today. Curious Jay, welcome to the show, man. Glad to have you on.
Guys, it is a pleasure to be on. Big fan of the podcast. I've been listening. I think I've heard almost every show you guys have done. Maybe missed a few here and there when I'm traveling, but it's definitely one of my faves, man.
We appreciate that, man. We actually just passed 13,033 downloads for you numerologists out there, halfway to hell.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, man. Again, went from, I think last week we recorded, we had just passed 12,000. So adding 1,000 more faster than we have. Absolutely. And then that's all because of you guys and other great shows out there. Impact Attack. We're actually doing reviews of old shows now. We just did Heat Wave 98, I believe, Stevie. I'm not sure if you were on that one or not.
I was recovering from neck surgery, and Papadon was still burying me for some reason, even way back 20 years ago.
With the infinite fringes on there, and we keep it all free. So thank you very much, guys. And if you're watching Stevie's video, you can help keep it free by supporting. We got the new Conspiracy Horsemen shirt on, which I'm stunting today on my birthday, infidels, the rise and praise, the Hacker's Day of Birth. But shout out to you, Greek God Papadon. What's going on, man? I'm going to see you tomorrow. I'm pumped about it.
Yeah, me too, brother. I'm looking to have a good time with my Conspiracy Horseman brother over here. First and foremost, happy birthday.
Thank you, son.
I hope your many wives bought you many gifts.
Yes, many gifts.
Happy birthday.
Thanks, man.
May your camel have many humps today.
Oh, gotten all the humps already. My back is destroyed, and I'm going to have to take it easy on Mondo tomorrow, but I'm going straight for the windpipe camel clutch, and we'll be out of there in 2 minutes.
No problem. You can carry that jabroni all day long. Yalla.
That's
I'm
right.
just chilling in the cup, man, ready to get down with this flat earth scenario. Is the world round? Is it flat? Who knows?
Yeah, it's good. I'm in between too, so hopefully today maybe I can get off the fence a little bit. But shout out to the one Big Stevie Cool. Stevie, how you doing, man? Back from American Top Team. We were so proud of you down there doing your stuff with Colby Covington and not getting any heat by testing positive for gas or anything like that.
I mean, I managed to avoid that. Isn't that? It's so hard to do, isn't it? It's so hard not to stick a needle in your ass and get all gassed up. And you know what the biggest miracle is? The fact that the test results always come back after the pay-per-view. You want to talk about a conspiracy. Yeah. My God. What do you call UFC again, Papadon?
It is a work, my friend. They do pro wrestling better than pro wrestling does pro wrestling.
And you he's back on that yayo too, because his dumbass is calling out Brock Lesnar post-fight, so you got to be high, homie. And, and I think Vince probably got the Stooge report before that because they didn't really want to put it over after that. And dumbass buries himself. But what can you do? He's from Binghamton, New York, the armpit of New York State, where it looks like a bunch of meth head zombies walking around on the street all day, every day. So I don't trust anybody from that camp or that clique. And good on you, homie. You got what you deserve. Embarrassing yourself and embarrassing the sport once again. Y'all.
It's amazing too that everybody you put out on Twitter and Facebook got a lot of hate for that, but I guess that's what I'm there for right now in the UFC. Talking about that John Jones belongs in pro wrestling because that's exactly where fuck ups get rewarded. But apparently in UFC, Colby told me and the people at American Top Team that those fuck ups get rewarded as well. So that's the trend right there. And, it's a good spot for Colby to actually step up because as Brock Jones fight was supposed to get everybody's attention. Now that's not going to happen. Now it's just waiting for somebody out there with the personality of a Colby Covington to step up and be a star.
Yeah, or they could just scrub the rules and say who can do more gas, Brock or Jones, and just come in at both of them with.
They should have a natural like bodybuilding, have a natural like category and a non-natural.
A big gas off.
Yeah, yeah. Who can do the most CCs?
Right.
or do the first fight totally on gas and then make sure they're clean for the second one 40 pounds lighter each.
Actually, there's a Colby Covington shirt coming out saying the only CCs I have is in my name.
Nice.
Seriously.
That's clever. That's
strong. Well, shout out American Top Team. It was good to see y'all on Impact last week, man. And, hopefully things keep going for them as a crossover in both, and just keep building their brand and everything goes well for you guys, man. But John Jones, you're a dumb motherfucker. End of story. Yeah. So, I don't want to eat up all Curious Jay's time here, man. We're going to get to Flat Earth, and there's plenty of, this is the new tinfoil hat, make fun of everyone. And when that kind of shit happens, that drives me deeper the other way. Not to be like, oh, I believe it fully, but like, when people come out of the woodwork who aren't studying anything just to point fingers and ridicule, that to me shows their ignorance and makes me want to push and learn more on the other side, because that whole other side of marks who just want to buy into whatever they're being told through mainstream sources and to be able to laugh and point fingers usually end up with their finger up their ass and embarrassed and going back in their hole the other way pretty much. So
I would agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that turned me off about Flat Earth, getting into it early on, was actually some of the people in the Flat Earth. You know what I mean? In that movement. And I don't think that's exclusive to Flat Earth. If you look back at 9/11 and, some of the UFO conspiracies, you'll find those guys that just think they're smarter than everyone else because they know this information and seem like they're talking down to everyone when they present it. And that just really, it doesn't matter what topic it is, that totally turns me off.
Agreed, man. And that's just, people's ego and personalities and striking out through fear to not really have to put anything over. But definitely got a lot of questions because, I'm still on the fence. I'm 50-50 and maybe 60-40. But, we've talked about fake moon landings, and that would lend credence to the one side of flat Earth, or why there is a firmament that we can't get out of. But here's the main reason why I believe in Spherical is when I've seen things, and this is just as simple as it gets from me not conducting any of my own experiments. But when you see anything in zero gravity that's liquid, it takes the form of something spherical, like when they're just spilling out tang into 0G or what have you. And that the Earth being 75% supposedly water, it seems like after there would have been an impact, that supposedly Earth was bigger and smashed through billions of years ago, that when it reformed or rehealed itself that way, that, physics would make it turn to that no matter how big it is inside the vacuum of space. Now, that's pretty simple, but in my simple mind, that's just how I stay on the globe side of things a little bit.
Well, it's funny you mentioned the water part of it, because before I even get into the NASA part, with them floating around in their 0G, I'll say this, because someone else recently, I was discussing flat Earth with them, and they said, I don't know, water forms to a sphere. Water forms to a sphere. And I said, well, it also settles flat as well. If you pour water in a bowl, the top of the water will always settle flat. Doesn't matter how big the bowl is, doesn't matter what the shape is, it always forms flat. So I guess I would call that a tie there on the what nature does category.
Yeah, I can feel you there, but then I'd have to rebut with, and this is a big part of it too, because it's the what if of gravity, that we are on the surface and being drawn down. Whereas if you were to throw that same water out into a vacuum of zero space, in space, would it make itself spherical, or would it stay flat in that bowl? Would it, elevate and the bowl separate, and then that water turns spherical? So maybe a little bit of sway in that argument.
So yeah, one of the things that I guess that I realized early on, to back up a little bit, when I first heard about this, I laughed, I ridiculed it, I didn't look into it. In fact, when someone sent me a link to a video, I think I just completely brushed it off. And it was not until 2 months later, when two other people sent me a video link or whatever, that I finally decided to watch it really quick. And I figured it would take me, I think it was like a 40-minute video they sent me. And I figured after 5 minutes, I'll be able to laugh this thing off and say I watched and debunk it and whatever. And, I quickly found out that the flat earth topic in general, man, it really makes the 9/11 official story look rosy and correct. I mean, there's way more, and I'm serious, and I'm with you guys on, because I listen to your show all the time, and almost every conspiracy you bring up, I'm right there with you guys 100%. 9/11, the Fed, all that stuff. Freemasons, the show you guys did on Freemasons was one of my favorite. That was a great talk.
And that's a big part of it too, because what sways me the other way is that Freemason map of the flat Earth that I've seen before.
Yeah, you guys mentioned it on the show, and one thing I wanted to bring up was, I think it was Stevie who pointed out the UN flag is shaped just like the flat Earth. But what's really interesting, back to the Freemason deal, is if you go and look at the UN flag again, it is the flat Earth with the wreath in place of Antarctica, and it's divided into sections. And how many sections are there on that flag? 33.
Oh, wow. 33 degrees.
Here we go again, right? But, the Freemason connection alone to not just flat Earth, but to space is actually shocking. It really is, to look and see just how many astronauts have been a part of Freemasonry. It's really staggering. Buzz Aldrin from Apollo 11, Gordon Cooper, Project Mercury, Don Esel from Apollo 7, John Glenn, Gus Grissom, Jim Irwin, Edgar Mitchell, Wally Schirra, Tom Stafford, Paul Joseph Weitz. All of these guys are the early NASA astronauts from Mercury, Gemini, Apollo missions, and they're all Freemasons. On top of that, Neil Armstrong, Alan Shepard, William Pogue, Vance Brand, and Anthony England have never admitted to being Freemasons, but all of their fathers were 33-degree Freemasons. So, and just one more icing on the cake, a guy named C, the initial C, Fred Kleinknecht. He was the head of NASA at the time of the Apollo space program. He is now the sovereign grand commander of the Council of 33 Degree of the ancient and accepted Scottish Rite of Freemasonry. And a lot of people say that this title was bestowed upon him because they pulled off the moon missions. And when I say pulled off the moon missions, I don't mean they made it there and back.
Yeah, I was listening to the Raven Effect podcast. That's something I was so shocked to hear your co-host of the Flat Earth podcast was on there. I thought this is great because Raven and I have been talking conspiracy theories since we reconnected at WrestleCon weekend of WrestleMania, and he was going to ask me to come on because he knew we were doing this show. But he had asked a lot of flat Earth questions, and I always referred him to your channel, Curious Jay, on YouTube. Check it out. There's quite a few, not many videos, but they're all very impactful and they're powerful, and they make some good points. So when he had your co-host on, I was like, this is going to be great. And then I listened to the first however many minutes, and he seemed really receptive. And as you said in the podcast, your latest episode, I believe, right? Talking about that appearance. It had an abrupt turn, and I think it was the moon landing that really kind of turned Raven and put up the walls, no pun intended, the ice walls. Yeah. So you and Papadon and me to an extent, I think Ben as well, we have our doubts about the official moon landing. And maybe you can talk a little bit more about that and the appearance of your co-host on Raven's podcast.
Yeah, it was very interesting to say the least. Whenever, I would say the first 15 minutes, like Stevie just said, the first 15, 20 minutes, he was asking a lot of great questions about the flat Earth and what about this and what about that. And David was, giving the answers, and Raven seemed sincerely into it. He really did. He was like, oh yeah, that's interesting, that sort of thing. And then they got into the moon landing, and David said, so do you believe that we landed on the moon? And Raven said, well, yeah, of course we did. It's not a big conspiracy. And then from that point forward, Raven just shut down completely shut down. And it was kind of disappointing as a listener, because I was listening to it objectively and was enjoying the fact that Raven was soaking up the things that David was saying until that moment. It really sucked. But as far as the moon landing goes, even before I even heard the words flat Earth, I was under the impression that the moon landings that we saw on TV and that sort of thing were completely fake. I just didn't know the reason. I thought it was the space race. I thought it was, they didn't want to do a real moon landing live on television in fear of what might, could happen. And then the flat Earth thing kind of really opened up more, I guess, more possibilities as far as the motive goes.
Yeah, I just don't believe how they got signal back like that to be able to broadcast from the moon like that. That alone, when we have Skype quit on us sometime, is just like such even harder to believe.
That's where Papadon makes some great points throughout the past few episodes when he brings it up. You see what I did there?
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. This segment's sponsored by Microsoft Outlook, apparently.
Nice.
Send it out to you.
I've always said the same thing that you just reiterated, but even in modern day terms, we've supposedly got Curiosity, the Mars rover that's rolling around up there, this remote control car that we are controlling from here, right? The signal goes out 50 million miles across the vacuum of space, and then manages to take 4K video and pictures and transmit that back to us somehow. NASA won't reveal the exact way they do it, but I can't even get I drive from Baton Rouge to New Orleans, and in the same spot every time my cell service drops, my Wi-Fi goes out. Come on, seriously? 50 million miles?
Yeah, I was just up in the Adirondack Mountains myself and lost cell service a ton too. So I definitely agree with that. And we also pointed out that the Mars rover shown all dusty before, and then recent pictures sparkling clean. I
guess someone's up there giving it a wash down,
Yeah.
I got to hear from Papadon. I want to hear this. Come on.
Come on.
I want to hear from you, man. You never do.
Right.
Unless you're burying me, you're completely quiet like a church mouse. What the fuck is going on, man?
No, man. I am just leaving the platform open for our guest. I'm being a good host, unlike you.
You got the biggest shitting grin on your face for the past 5 minutes. You got to say something. Come on, man.
Yeah, please, Papadon. I don't take it as disrespect, because I had probably many of the comments that you guys would have coming against Flat Earth. I had the same comments and the same thoughts, and I've probably, no matter what you could say, I've probably heard worse.
No, it's fine. I mean, look, you're friends with Stevie. That's worse. That's the worst of the worst.
That's the worst. Yeah, we got that out of the way, right?
So we got that out of the way.
He believes in lean Earth. How's that? That's where I live.
But let me ask Papadon, what's some of your knee-jerk reactions to this?
Well, as far as the moon landing goes, I totally hoaxed, totally faked. Do I believe we went to the moon? There's a possibility we did go to the moon, but what we saw on TV, well, I wasn't around then. Raymond Stevie, when he was about 45 then, saw it when the moon landing happened. Then that was orchestrated, maybe, I don't know, Area 51, Hollywood basement, the back lot, who knows, but that was a work. That was definitely planned and staged. Maybe Kubrick did film it, who knows, but I don't believe that's what really happened as far as them saying we went to the moon when they showed on TV. I think those are two different things. And my reasoning is because, one, if we did go to the moon, why haven't we gone back? And two, well, three things. Second thing is they say that we don't have the technology anymore to go to the moon because we lost it. What the fuck are you talking about? Technology now bounds since that time. So you're telling me, but now we're technologically advanced that we can't go to the moon? That doesn't make any sense. And that's a NASA statement. And the third thing is, this is the most greatest, I guess, journey or discovery or achievement, expedition in the history of mankind, going to the moon. And you're telling me that you have no tapes? NASA, with all this budget money that they get year in, year out, they don't have any documentations, any videotapes, any anything that happened during that day, they said, oh, it got destroyed or we lost it, we don't have it any longer. Bullshit.
That's almost criminal. They should press charges against them for that. Should be in the Smithsonian or another place where people could see it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, even all those tapes they just found in one homeboy's basement there.
Yeah.
And they came in, gone. Not like we're gonna have a big reveal on Science Channel of all these stuff, and it might be boring as shit, but hey, they're tapes that were lost now can be revealed to the public. Nope.
Well, the reasoning for that, in my opinion, is because the more evidence that's out there that people can analyze, the more loopholes that could be found in their stories. So if they destroy all the evidence, then they can't be called frauds because there's no way to debunk what they're telling us. So they're basically trying to bury the lead.
I think the whole center, and this is a good segue, is NASA, right, Curious Jay? Yeah. I mean, it's NASA is really the center of all these lies. We're already talking about it, and NASA's come up how many times, and we haven't even talked about, as far as images, not photos, but images and stuff like that. It really goes down a laundry list of items, and NASA is at the core of each and every one of these questionable facts or lies, call it whatever you will.
Right. And I think that it's important to know, Dave mentions this a lot when he's on podcasts and that sort of thing, when people are talking to him, but he always says it, and it's such a great statement, but he says, we've learned everything we know about space. We've learned from two sources, NASA and Disney. And by Disney, you could say Hollywood, right? And he always says at this point, Disney is way more credible than NASA. And it's so true. It sounds like just a funny statement, but it's so true. We really have learned everything about space as we know it from those two sources. And when you stop and think about that, that's pretty unbelievable.
It's too believable. And, first point is Raven, I would never kick out of the even flow. I'd lay down, so you would be too heated about it. And the other thing is the straight answer that the Earth pictures from the time we're supposedly having satellites go up, and just the not even getting the color correction on these images, right, where the oceans are far different blues, or the flyovers that supposedly satellites do over full continents, where you can see all the major cities lit up from South Africa to the up north in Egypt. And there's not a cloud in the sky when they're doing these flyovers. Like, you're going to go over the largest continent and not have any cloud cover whatsoever, just so you can show the oohs and ahs of the Disney side of things, so you can feel like you're on a round planet. So just even their Photoshop abilities. And then I've seen other pieces where they're supposedly doing, and I do digital marketing, so I'm pretty much an Adobe pro as that goes, where they put in, they're just using the clone stamp brush on cloud cover, and you can see the identical cloud that covers hundreds of miles of South America right next to it. And then I also saw they embedded the word sex in the clouds on there too. So just like a straight up fuck you to, people who are the marks out there and aren't 33rd degree Mason club.
Well, here's my question. Yeah. I got a quick question just to follow up on that, Jay. When I saw that and they were showing the Discover, the thing that's 1 million miles out with the great data transmission that we don't have access to with the internet, that was giving these 4K like images.
Right.
When they were showing, the Earth rotating and the cloud cover was the same throughout a 24+ hour period. Yeah. Shouldn't the weather always be the same at specific times then? Like, how do hurricanes happen? How do all these other weather? There should be a darker cloud cover, or as they show from the International Space Station or the space shuttle, that big eye of the storm and everything looks completely different. There has to be a storm somewhere on the planet where you see it.
Agreed. And go out to your yard any day of the week and take a look up at the clouds, analyze the formations, or take a picture with your phone, right? And come back 2 hours later and see what has happened with the clouds. They will never be in the same place.
Let's throw that in there. The chemtrails.
We just did the chemtrail show, and
first of all, you'll see a bunch of chemtrails 9 times out of 10.
But not from the satellites. Not from not from that.
Right. But natural cloud coverage, I mean, it changes constantly. And NASA released the name of that is the Epic Discover, but I call it the Deceiver. And what's really interesting, so when I first heard about flat Earth, one of the statements made in almost every flat Earth video early on was that, look, all photos from space are fake. All photos of the Earth from space are fake. And I said, okay, here we go. Like, I took that one first, and I was like, this ought to be easy to debunk. And what you find out really quickly, and I sent you guys a link to a Newsweek article, but in 2015, NASA did a press release for this new satellite that they supposedly put 1 million miles away from Earth, called the Epic satellite with the Discover camera, whatever. And they, in the press release, they tell you that this is the actual first real image of the full Earth since the Apollo missions. I was shocked because I was like, wait a second. It's 2015. That was 43 years prior. The last Apollo mission was 43 years ago. So you're telling me that all the pictures of Earth, NASA is basically admitting by their own admission that everything in between 72 and 2015 are fake.
I want to stop you real quick. This title has been edited since you sent it to me last time, Jay.
Yeah, I believe it has.
It was the first image, and now it says the first unstitched image. This title has been changed since the first time you sent it to me.
Yeah, because they have to cover their asses, and it's basically, they released lots of photos of Earth between 72.
Mandela effect, that could be it too.
Yeah, it could be that. Yeah, right. But they've released tons of photos between 72 and 2015 of the Earth. But yeah, they had to correct it and say unstitched because everything has been composited together.
Well, Jay, let me ask you this. We have NASA, and they are putting together images or photoshopping images of the Earth. And then you have this idiot Neil deGrasse Tyson come out and say that the Earth isn't round, that it's pear-shaped, that it's a little wider on the bottom than it is on top.
A little chubby.
It's a little chubby, And speaking about little chubbies, keep it in your pants, Stevie. But
you stole my main point. The one
I didn't mean to get anybody excited. Didn't mean to get anybody excited.
You keep
but
going.
Right then and there, they're contradicting themselves, and that's obviously a point for flat earthers that they like to make. But here's a point that I'd like to make, because I'm on the fence about this whole scenario, because a lot of the points that I hear about people trying to convince other people that Earth is flat makes sense. Well, from an engineering point of view, from a mathematical point of view, just looking outside and seeing the horizon and the curvature of the Earth, how it's supposed to be so many inches per so many miles, or whatever the case may be. And all that, you look at it, with an open mind, and it makes you go, okay, there's a valid point here, there's a valid point there. But my biggest discretion is this. I look in the sky, I see the moon, it's round. I look at the sun, it's round. We look at the planets, the other planets, they're round. Through a telescope or whatever the case may be, if you're lucky enough to see it in the night sky, a very minute, picture, or not picture, or vision of it, they're round. So why would everything else that we say is round be round and the Earth not be round? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I totally understand what you're saying. Two things to answer that. Number one is if you ask the pool table what shape he is, he's going to think he's round because all the balls on top of him are round. It's one of those logical, just because we look up and see round things does not mean anything towards what you're living on. It's no guarantee that what you're living on is flat or round.
No, you're right.
And then the other thing is that, again, keep in mind that everything we know about these planets, all of our lives, comes from NASA or Hollywood. And then, of course, the NASA information gets put in our textbooks as little children. So do the planets look round? Sure. But are they flat circles? Are they physical 3D spheres? I don't know. I haven't been up there.
So you're saying that it could be a flat circle and we're only seeing one side of the planet and it's not rotating like the Earth?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, like, it could be a disc that is, it could be a flat disc light. I mean, I don't know what they are.
Here's the one thing about those, once again, going back to NASA with the images, the Voyagers that have gone out there, the probes that have left the solar system, they take the pictures. People don't even realize what they're seeing is art, what they're seeing as a composite, because they're taking a picture of the satellite in front of the planet. So obviously,
Right.
what's taking the picture of the satellite in
Yeah,
front of,
who took the photo?
Yeah, and they're very, the actual pictures from Voyager, or the one, what was the one in 77? Was that Voyager or Pioneer? Was there a Pioneer one before that?
That was Voyager.
Yeah, the Voyager one, and then there was another one. But it just stuff like that, when even the TRAPPIST system that has all those supposed inhabitable planets, and they had a CGI and they had a big virtual reality thing ready like the day of the announcement. It was just, that was really fishy, because there was a flat Earth. Was that the Kylie Irving thing that hit, and all of a sudden NASA had an announcement that they found life on another system?
Yeah, 3 days later. Yeah, it was like on the Tuesday after the big Kyrie Irving thing hit the news. All of a sudden, we found another solar system with life forms and yada yada yada. And I don't remember the exact number, but it was X number of light years away. And when you do the math, we're talking about something that is like trillions of miles away. I'm sorry. When I stop and think about what we've been fed since we were kids, we took it all for granted. And I mean, you guys know, I know you guys know it can accept this, what I'm about to say, because I listen to your podcast. But why is it that we grew up thinking that every group of men is corruptible except science?
Science is a work.
Yeah, I mean, like, seriously, like, we can all accept that the government lies to us. We can all accept that this country may lie to us, that, well, there's Freemasons, there's elite, there's Illuminati, and they might lie to us or whatever. But it's like science has gotten a free pass since I was born. If science says it, boom, that's it. And how many of us have actually dug into what they told us to see if it's true? I have never, in my wildest dreams, done that until the last 2 years. And when you start looking into the things that we all thought were absolute truths in our life, you go, oh my gosh, there's nothing behind it.
That's the lazy science. I said it before, Papadon. Don't steal the other part of my great mic drop that I have. You're about to. So you're literally biting your lip. You want to do it, don't you?
No, I'm just thinking about you.
The
last time I saw you drop a mic was in Philly. You told Philly to go fuck themselves.
No, I told New Orleans go fuck themselves. See you guys soon. No, I did.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I'll add to go back to the Freemason thing, because I think we can all relate to that.
Thanks for watching my match, by the way.
It was a good match.
It was. I don't remember
Luke
it.
carried you. Luke Hawks.
He literally carried me, then threw me.
Carried you.
No, I'll go back to the Freemason list. I want to add 4 more names to that list really quick. Copernicus, Kepler, Galileo, and Newton.
Oh, wow.
4 names to ring a bell, right?
Yeah.
The basis for science.
That is his father, the 4 fathers. That's the 4 horsemen of the heliocentric model.
Careful now.
They're the guys that gave us the system that we all believe to be true today. All 4 of them, coincidentally, Freemason.
Yep. This is the point I want to make real quick, and going back to Neil deGrasse Tyson saying that it's an oblate spheroid, it's pear-shaped, it's bulging. We see these images over decades that have a completely round globe. The globe is in the classrooms. The globe is basically from the time we're kids. Like you say, there's the famous flat Earth, the Eric Dubé documentary where it has the baby with the globe. Since we were kids, we were indoctrinated to believe that. Whether or not the Earth is flat or any of the other stuff, the fact that Neil deGrasse Tyson, probably the most famous scientist right now outside of Stephen Hawking, says it's an oblate spheroid, it's pear-shaped, it's bulging, and the images don't match up, and the globes aren't being changed, and the education system isn't going along with what this renowned scientist is saying. It's at the very best lazy science, and at the very worst, it just
deception.
Yeah, well, why? Why, if he's on record saying that, why are people not in an uproar saying, you need to change it then? And we need to get some
Yeah.
images or photos of what it really looks like.
Yeah, I agree. You take those photos of Earth that we've all been given in every textbook since we were kids, and you bring them into Photoshop and put them next to a sphere. Draw an automatic sphere with Photoshop. It's not like a almost sphere, it's not a spheroid. It is perfect spheres that we've been fed as far as the Earth goes since we were kids. Look at every globe that we've ever seen in our lives. It is a perfect round sphere. But yet, the leading astrophysicist in the world, goes out and says that. So, one of them has to be wrong. And I think the biggest problem with guys like Neil deGrasse Tyson is that they pick and choose when they're going to say these things. Like, they won't get in a situation where someone is going to rebut. Like, they're not going to come on our podcast and let us, when he makes an asinine statement like the Earth is a pear, he's not going to let someone, follow up with another question. Well, wait a second. Why are NASA's photos, every single one of them, perfect spheres? Yeah. They're very careful. They pick and choose their battles. They go on their little, quick little 60-second rants on CNN or whatever, and then no one gets to ever rebut or follow up. Just like the 9/11 stuff from 10 years ago.
I put it out there on the last one. Come on, shooter. Hacker Hamin's ready for you, Tyson, anytime you want some, moron.
Yeah.
I got a couple things, and he also buries himself in a video I just watched where he gets asked about gravity, and he does the humming a bit pretty much.
Yeah.
Can't explain it, but we know, and it fits into all these principles. If homeboy was that smart, he'd be dedicating his time to, not getting backed into a corner with that one, it seems, or being able to even deflect to someone who's definitely studying that a lot more, and Newton and the whole nine that way, but backed into a corner. And then the other jabroni, Bill Nye the Science Guy, which was just the cool thing to introduce science to kids, which I also believe globes are too, because kids are playing basketball, soccer, So Spherical is also just an easy way to teach them geography. It's something they can relate to. But he does the thing of the ship going into the horizon, and as it goes down and you see less and less of the ship starting with the bottom. Well, easily debunked when you pull out telescope and look straight through it, and you can see the whole ship now. So really that has to do with human vision abilities more than it has to do with the curvature of the Earth, right? So
that's exactly
points on the flat Earth side for that. So easily debunked. And then obviously he's walking around with a lab coat on, so people think he's official. And you posed a question earlier, why is it that science seems never corruptible? Well, it's because they were juxtaposed to politicians who are easily corruptible men and well known. And it's also the super brainiacs that we went to school with who were probably anti-jock or what have you. And, they didn't have the personality of someone who would be looking for a popularity contest and would be corruptible that way. So really, who do we have? Now we have these TV personalities, and people are going at both of them because we love to on celebrities. It's what we do. But aside from that, Richard Dawkins and Stephen Hawking are really the only other two, and no one's going to go after Stephen Hawking, who's like a mud puddle in a wheelchair pretty much, right, with a speaking spell.
Christ, man.
Yeah. With a speaking spell.
Yeah.
Well, that's a first hearing that.
Yeah, well, I get my heat on everyone. He's a faker in it for the disability checks. So that whole side of things, no one's really gone at them that hard that way because they don't have the personality to put themselves out there or aren't in the limelight long enough to be considered corruptible men. Now, you're talking science side with big pharma, ultimate corruption in my mind as well. So
sure.
Easy enough to hit on them now that all this stuff is out there and people sharing information. One thing I wanted to switch to, and I'm not sure if you listened to this Horseman show or not, but Antarctica we covered and touched a lot on Nazi bases in Atlantis and whatnot. We touched a bit on flat Earth with that, and how 31 countries signed on that they won't invade or claim it for themselves. But on the Infinite Fringe podcast I'm on iHeartRadio, our resident flat earther from Iron Realm Media was on there, and he has interviewed this guy, John Brahma. And I think it's a kayfabe name, and if you just look up John Brahma WordPress, his site will come up. And he claims to be a security guard, ex-military, that's down there with 430 other scientists, and about 14 of them are ready to break kayfabe. And whether he's trying to work people or not, work millionaires, he sent a picture of what looks like a water wall, an ice wall, an energy wall, which is the firmament, and it's not, like tap on it. What's the movie with Jim Carrey?
Truman Show.
Truman Show. Thank you. Truman style, but you can go through it. Ships have gone through it. But I guess when people do witness it, some people fall out, like the energy wall has a adverse effect on them and they just can't, maybe mentally take it. But he's planning a trip to take, I think it's 50 grand you got to kick in to when he hits 1 million, which supposedly is happening this October.
I'll have to sit this one out.
Yeah. That he's going to take people to that 14 scientists have said it's time to expose, and that they're actually going to take people to that. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him or not, but he seems to have a lot of answers that people want to believe when it comes to the flat earth questions, as opposed to hard evidence. A little bit more, I've seen it, and here's what it really is. So the firmament part is very interesting to me. I'm the resident atheist here, but if we talk predictive programming, you can watch the Simpsons episode where Homer's having a dream and hits the baseball in the Capitol Stadium, and it goes up and hits a glass ceiling, and all of a sudden the ocean drains on.
And have you guys seen the Hennessy commercial?
I don't believe so.
Oh my gosh, there's a Hennessy commercial. It's on YouTube. Just type in like Hennessy flat earth commercial, but where the guy, it's based on the explorer Auguste Piccard way back in the day. And he goes up he's the guy that went up the highest that any human had ever gone at that time. He went up in a hot air balloon, or not a hot air balloon, but I think it was a helium balloon in a little container. And he got so high, he was, I want to say he was like 65,000 feet, maybe.
John Jones.
Right. But he goes up, and in the commercial, it's based on him. But when he goes up, he gets up way, way up there. And then all of a sudden he bursts through a liquid roof.
That's what he said. That's what John Brahma said, that this is like a liquid, moving energy.
And then you say, what the heck is this doing in a Hennessy commercial? Like, how's this selling, alcohol? I have no idea. Or is it like you just mentioned, is it more predictive programming?
Yeah. And the doors break on through to the other side, the glass ceiling. I mean, Hillary Clinton, as much as I'd even hate to use her as a source, saying that there's 18 million cracks in the glass ceiling and will eventually break through. Like, interesting predictive programming along those lines, to say it. And it's just tough for me to think that we're sitting in a big snow globe. But then again, snow globes, and we it could be part of the conditioning of it all.
There was another one besides Operation High Jump with Admiral Byrd. There was Operation Fishball, where they were launching nuclear weapons up into the sky for some reason. Why call it fishball? That's so weird.
Fishbowl. Right?
Was that the one where they launched the nukes up into the sky?
Yeah, they were painting the sky with nukes. Tons
why do all rockets that take off from NASA bank to the right out over the ocean? They just
I hang to the right too. So I mean,
TMI.
Now you calm down, Papadon. Take it easy. Look up.
I am taking it easy.
Eyes here, buddy. Eyes here.
Taking it easy, buddy.
My webcam's not
one of the comments that I heard Papadon a few weeks ago mentioned was that the Greeks, the Pythagoras knew the Earth was round.
Why'd you do this?
Jesus. We went fucking
42
minutes without this shit. Oh, fuck.
No, I just wanted to address
something. That's the record right there. What is it?
43:55.
Mark it.
So the Greeks were were incredible as far as mathematics and everything goes, but I started questioning that because early on when I started researching this, you stumble upon Pythagoras knew that the Earth was round. You stumble upon Eratosthenes knew that the Earth was round due to the shadow experiment that he did in Egypt. But what's really interesting, if Pythagoras knew that the Earth was round in 300 BC, you have to ask yourself, well, how many people were along with him for that ride? Because the earliest globes that we can find are like from the 1500s. So
very well said.
You know what I mean? Like, Why weren't there a ton of globes from the year 400 or the year 700 or the year 900? There was no globes in existence. The earliest globe found, the oldest antique globe, is like either the 1400s or the 1500s, which of course was after Copernicus introduced the model, and they were trying to put things into effect. Everything before that was all flat.
But they don't claim that.
I'm not doubting the
Revisionist
mathematic
history
skills
says,
of Pythagoras. I'm just doubting how many people thought the Earth was round back then.
This is when you have Joe. I want to make a quick point. Sorry, Joe Rogan has all these people on, and I don't know. We're going to do an episode on shills, and I believe he's in that category lately with the type of stuff he's putting out there. He was saying that, like you just said, that revisionist history says that now it's always been a globe, and for a very short time, it's been flat. Like that was the minority, rather than we were taught that we believed the Earth was flat until Columbus went all the way around.
Yes, that's what we were told as kids, is that the ancients thought that the world was flat because it looks flat from the ground. But Columbus or Magellan, one of those, was sailing around the world, and they realized that they saw the boats disappearing hull before mast, and they realized that it had to be a ball Earth. And we were all taught the same thing, and this whole thing is really, really, like I say, made me question science and history.
Yeah, and they drive it home with little kids with there's sea monsters, and you'll fall off the edge of the earth,
fall off the edge.
You're falling off your bunk bed and all that shit when you're kids. So yeah, it's all fear conditioning, operant conditioning, absolutely, which we've fell for enough, but now it's in everything we do, and that's why another thing where I think people are being pushed the other way. Now, let me flip the coin.
I think Papadon was going to say something too.
Oh, sorry.
After he sends his tweet to Big O.
No, I'm actually watching the Hennessy commercial right now.
Oh, yeah.
You guys are watching it. It's pretty freaky.
Isn't it? That's a predictive program right there.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with selling Hennessy. I don't get it, but
yeah, me neither.
Anyway, what was I going to say now? I totally forgot what I was going to say because I was rudely interrupted by the big leaguer over there. So.
I was going to say we're all big fans of Secure Team 10 and the alien bit.
I'll tell you.
This is where we kind of get like a little shook, because there's plenty of people who send stuff who are big time watchers of, the space station beaming back 24/7 camera, and that they've turned off plenty of times when some questionable UFOs fly through, or they'll try and pan away that way. So that's one part of it. Whereas if you believe the 24/7 cam on the space station is legit and you're looking for UFOs and not worrying about flat Earth, where I'm like, oh, that contradicts a lot of what we're trying to establish in our minds as one thing versus the other.
Yeah, and let me tell you, I prior to flat Earth, for years, I've been a UFO guy forever. Meaning like, there's no doubt in my mind, like that that there's something to that, right? There's just, it's not like 4 drunk farmers said there was UFOs. No, I mean, it's from former presidents to military officials. Like, come on, there's something to this phenomenon.
Defense minister of Canada to people on the highways in Mexico with mass sightings, right?
Exactly. And so when I stumbled upon the flat Earth deal, I am one now who subscribes to the belief that I don't know if it's a dome, I don't know what it's shaped like, but I do believe that there is a limit that we can go. Again, why haven't we been back to the moon? Why aren't we sending people to Mars? Why does this? They just keep kicking the can down the road. Now it's 2030. Now it's 2050. This has been happening since the 70s. So, but what's really ironic about the UFO thing is that for years, probably since about 2007, when I really studied the USO phenomenon, all of the reports from the Navy with the underwater UFOs, right? Where they would see them underwater on radar. They would catch them on radar, and then they would just jet up into the sky, that sort of thing. And, my wife, my sister, they'll vouch for me on this. I've been saying this way before Flat Earth, but I always thought, you know what? I don't think they're traveling trillions of light years to get here. I think they traveled here thousands of years ago, and that they're nesting in our oceans. That's what I, was saying prior to Flat Earth. And that I always thought, if they're more intelligent than us, if they needed to go, let's say they needed to go abduct a cow real quick, or pick up Stevie one night and probe him, right? If they
like that.
if they needed to do that,
space
I
colonoscopy.
know Pat
Right.
Patterson was an alien.
for his monthly or whatever, if they needed to do that, if they're smarter than us, would you ride through the water and just come up at the beach?
It took
so
you that
everyone
long
can
to get it,
see?
Papadon? I'm sorry to cut you off.
No. I just didn't want to laugh too loud and cut off Jay like you
Yeah.
abruptly did.
Didn't want to fuck up his WWE push.
No,
That too.
but I always thought to myself, would you just cruise over to the beach, come up on land where people can see you, go inland and grab the person? Or would the rule be, hey, let's rock it up as high as we can go, from the center of the ocean, go over to Nebraska, and then come down from the skies. That way it keeps all the humans looking up.
Yeah,
Not in the oceans where I think they are.
Yeah, and to add to that too is we talk about the firmament being an energy field. There's absolutely possibility of a way advanced civilization as we've seen them go into cloaking mode and out of it to be visible, that they could easily break through that. Or the fact that, and this is part of the flat earth theory that I've seen, is if we are in a firmament, there's land on the other side of that we are actually trapped in a giant jail of what we have, and that land that's beyond that could
beyond Antarctica. Yeah.
Right. Beyond Antarctica could be how people think of a multiverse with bubbles up against each other. And what if that is just another piece of land in the earth, and you're just kind of crossing a gate, or a stargate, if they will, that way to get to do it? Or can they be multidimensional and go in and out of their own energy field along those lines to break through it? So there's a couple different things. And that's thanks to my boy at Iron Realm Media for kind of bringing that up in the conversation we had.
Yeah.
Infinite Fringe. So I think, is there aliens on Earth, but are they just on the other side of that firmament? And they've been there for X amount of time. And there's a whole, if you're talking about reptilians or Dracos or whatever, and then you're talking about dumb bases underground. Well, if you want to, instead of go through a firmament or go up, and you find a way underneath the ground, that's like another way to be able to cross into this side, into this realm of 7 continents, right?
Yeah. What's the famous famous line that we've all heard over and over, that we know more about the surface of the moon than we do the bottoms of our oceans?
Yeah. And part of that was satellites too. People say satellites are bullshit, and that 99% of all of our information and internet is passed through underwater cables through an ocean anyway.
Yeah. And that's a fact. I mean, that's an admitted fact. I was, when I first got into this, I was one of those that would say, if you asked me, what do we use satellites for? I'd say, GPS, cell phones, internet, that sort of thing, right? That'd be my first 3 obvious answers. Well, do a little research into it, and nobody should take anything for granted. Like, don't believe anything I'm saying. Do your own research, is what we always tell people. But when you look into this, you'll find that 99%, they openly admit that 99% of our internet comes from undersea cables. GPS, it's triangulated towers, just like it was prior to GPS. And the S does not stand for satellite. It's global positioning system, not global positioning satellites. So you got to ask yourself, well, what are we using those 20,000 satellites for?
Yeah, there's 2 different points from mental floss. This is what we shared with each other initially. One point, it said 99% of international data is transmitted by wires at the bottom of the ocean called submarine communication cables. And then there's another point that's kind of weird. Connecting the world through undersea cables isn't exactly new. So they dated it back to almost 1854. So if you're talking about satellites being transmitting data internationally, especially because that's what you would figure they would do, the satellites orbiting the Earth would be able to give data all around the world. But it's saying 99% of this is underwater, which is strange.
Yeah, underwater cables. So as far as the UFO thing goes, I don't think that the flat Earth negates believing that there's an extraterrestrial presence. It just kind of changes the terms of what extraterrestrial might mean. Rather than them coming from 6 trillion light years away across galaxies and whatever, maybe they're just coming from 20,000 miles over to the right.
Yeah.
Could very well be. Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool that a lot of people know about the UN flag. But, you know, if you take a look at the image that I sent you guys a second ago, look at these organizations. The International Maritime Organization, and anyone who's listening can look this up, the International Civil Aviation Group, the International Maritime, I said that one, there was another one, WHO, all of these groups that deal with maritime and aviation, look at their flags, look at their logos. Every single one of them has the flat earth divided up into 33 pieces. And I just find that kind of stuff it's circumstantial evidence, but it is pretty compelling to me.
Illuminati.
Yeah,
Go
almost like NASA with the vector, that red vector that they have in there.
Yeah, the vector they put in everything.
Yeah, just like all the other space stations, the space institutions from other countries all over. They all have the same logo somewhere incorporated, the same vector incorporated into their logos. It's very eerie.
Yeah, there's a question that I ask a lot of people whenever I'm approaching this topic with others that I find so interesting and demanding of an answer, and that is very simple. And if you go to my channel, Curious J channel on YouTube, the last video that I posted was actually a clip of Neil deGrasse Tyson answering this question, which is hilarious. It's better than the gravity one. But the question is this: you know, if our atmosphere is gaseous and it's thicker at the surface of Earth, and as we know, as you go up in the mountains and you get higher and higher, the air gets thinner. So it's like a gradient, right? How does our gaseous atmosphere exist adjacent to the largest vacuum in the world? Space is the infinite vacuum of space, right? How is the atmosphere not being sucked off the planet? And the second law of thermodynamics says that a high pressure system will always move to the low pressure area. In other words, if you turn your heater on, right, in the house when it's cold outside and you open the door, you're not letting the cold air in. Technically, you're letting the hot air out, and it will seek equilibrium, right?
Yeah.
This is a law of thermodynamics. It's not a theory, it's a law. Because in every single test demonstration, it always holds true, except for one, the planet Earth and its atmosphere.
Maybe the Van Alden belts are the firmament, you know, maybe it's not a glass.
Yeah, maybe it's a band of radiation.
Or the ozone layer when they're big.
Oh, no one talks about the ozone layer anymore.
Yeah.
I know, right?
Hole in the ozone layer.
What happened to that whole thing?
Well, if you think about it, Van Allen belt is radiation, which is also energy. So the energy wall you guys are talking about, it could be. So I've heard that recently. It's funny how the Van Allen radiation belts have never been connected with the flat Earth theory at all, but recently that has been talked about along with that energy wall theory.
Right. Right.
Well, let me ask you guys a question. Oh,
yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
The question is, you know, everywhere you go online, you see this, flat Earth, that, and everyone basically says it's like a snow globe. There's a dome, there's a firmament. Well, first thing first, the guy, what's his name, the Nazi from who started NASA, Brauman.
Werner von Braun.
Von Braun. On his headstone, he has the word. And he, from what I understand, he wasn't a religious guy, but the only things on his headstone, it says Psalms 111 or whatever verse.
Yeah, 19.
Yeah, whatever. You know better than I do. But that basically says in the Bible something about the firmament. So people are saying, well, there's a clue right there that we are living in something that's being covered by a firmament. Whether it's a glass ceiling, whether it's not, who knows? But then there was this YouTube video of a rocket going up into space.
Yeah.
And then it stops.
Yeah.
It just comes to a complete stop at about 115,000 feet up in the air. It was about 73,000 miles in the air.
After it's like spinning like insane at an insane velocity. It just,
I mean, an abrupt stop.
In a slow mo.
It sounded like it hit a plastic bubble or something, like it went boom and then quiet, and then it's.
It would have exploded if it hit something, you know, going that speed. Absolutely, it like instantly starts going through jello, kind of like a ballistics test on a bullet, right? When you see it slow down that way.
Boom. Yeah.
My question is this, though. Everyone keeps posting this image of the Earth with the big globe on it, and the bottom of it looks like a V-shaped, like almost like a piece of a meteor. So basically, it looks like a snow cone.
You want to talk about predictive programming?
The big chunk.
You want to talk about predictive programming real quick? Star Blazers. Remember that sci-fi cartoon Star Blazers? In the second or third episode, they blew up the planet island or whatever it was called, and it looked just like the flat Earth. You have to
Really?
look
I
it
haven't
up.
seen that.
Starblaze. They shot the wave motion gun, and it was basically one flat plane, and had the soil and came down to a point like a triangle, like it was a floating planet. And I never forgot that, because it was the first time they used this weapon in the show, this huge weapon from the ship that destroyed the planet. But it looked just like some of these renderings that I see when you search flat Earth images.
Wow. I haven't seen that one. Yeah, but I know the image you're talking about. It's like a chunk at the bottom.
Yeah, so my question is this, right? Every image has the big globe, and from one side of the chunk, the globe ends, to the other side of the chunk, the globe ends. So it's just one dome, and then the V bottom, and that's it. What if, and this is just me trying to make sense out of all this, what if we are living on a chunk, but what if the firmament that's covering us, that's keeping the gases onto our planet, the oxygen and all that stuff, from floating into the vacuum of space, what if it's just a little bubble, and there's, like you guys said, there's more bubbles on the outside? Or better yet, what if the firmament surpasses the ice wall that just surrounds us as a barrier, and there are other pieces of land and other individuals or species that don't want to be bothered with us? Maybe we were the Jehovah's Witnesses of the universe, and the people just put a wall up against us because they got tired of us knocking on everyone's door or bothering people on the holy day. Who knows? But point I'm trying to make too is that there's so many conspiracy theories out there. We touch upon a different one every week, and we're going to be touching upon many different ones to weeks to come. But certain conspiracy theories contradict other conspiracy theories, because if there is a flat Earth and there is a firmament, that we never went to the moon and we never went to anything in outer space, and everything is a lie that NASA tells us, then there isn't no secret NASA army on Mars fighting aliens for the last 15 years that Gaia preaches. And at the same time, if there's a hollow Earth and people living inside the planet, then there is no flat Earth. So basically, I'm going on a rant, but what I'm trying to say is that with this whole hollow Earth theory is, what if, and this is a theory that I came up with recently, and you guys can think it's nuts or whatever, but just an idea. What if the portion that we're on right now is flat, but it's flat, what we're contained in is just a small portion of what truly is flat, the entire landscape of the chunk or whatever that we're on? But what if that was part of the asteroid belt, which was once a planet that collided with the other planet, and ancient civilizations that had all this great ancient technologies that built the pyramids and Atlantis and this and that, maybe put the firmament there to keep us alive because we couldn't survive in space?
Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I don't think that's a ludicrous thought at all. Where I'm at in my journey is this. And it took me a long time to say these words, but I am 100% convinced that we are not on a spinning globe Earth that is 25,000 miles in circumference. So they're either lying about the shape or the size.
As far as the size goes, not to cut you off, Jay, we've been lied to not only, the shape of the planet, but the shape of our continents. There's certain continents that look a certain way on a two-dimensional map, on a flat piece of paper, and they're actually not that big or that small. It just doesn't make any sense in reality.
Greenland is presented as a monster country up there. It looks huge.
I've been lying about his size for a lot of years, man. Not just that, but he has 2-inch lifts on his boots so he can make 6 foot.
That's right. I'm 5'10". I'm not gonna lie. I'm 5'10". I build at 6 foot because of my lifts on my boots. I'm honest. So what? Tough shit.
Guys, just a real quick thing. I'm gonna send it to you. It's called the floating continent from Star Blazers, and it's really. I
was thinking in the new Star Wars, don't they come in and warp into a new world where there's like the floating?
No spoilers. No,
not new. Not the new one. But isn't there? Like there's a fly through of like floating islands in the sky, right?
No.
Yeah.
Where, in episode 7?
Here's the one with Kylo Ren, isn't it in that one? I believe. I'm not sure what number it was. I only saw it.
Sure you're not talking about Guardians of the Galaxy where they had the
or Cloud City?
No, it's not Cloud City. It might be Guardians of the Galaxy. There's like a fly through scene where there's these, take any small island that's like whatever, a mile to 5 miles wide, and they're flying the ship through, and you can see the hanging down of like roots and dirt, but they're suspended in 0G kind of, and all the islands are slightly shifting and moving along.
You got to take a look at the picture I sent you. That's exactly what you're describing with this.
I see that, and that's from that's the one from Star Blazers.
Star Blazers. It's called a floating continent outside Jupiter. So that's how they kind of said that it was just floating outside of Jupiter, like it just strange. And that was back in the 80s.
I don't think you're off with that. With how we are on one plane that way and maybe encapsulated, but I think hollow earth theory can still fit into that if you, not to make it as simple as food, but if we're on the top part of an Oreo, you can still be flat, right? We're not, instead of having the disc in a globe shape, turn it on the side like a quarter, and what's in the center that way could still be hollow, and plenty of things could be inside of that as well, where the center is. So
but the only thing is with this hollow earth theory, they're saying one entry is on the North Pole, which used to be a land mass and Santa Claus lived on, but thanks to the Mandela effect, now it's just a point in the ocean.
Yeah, now it's just a blue ocean.
And then the other entryway is through Antarctica and the South Pole.
Yeah, but if we are spinning even on that, we're in, and this is interesting wordplay, a hemisphere, a half a sphere, right? So the first would be there. North isn't up on the globe. It's just dividing that top of the Oreo into 4 sections, and north is always going to spin one way as far as that goes. So if you walk that way, it would still be north, and it just like a compass spins along those lines.
Like on the flat Earth, where the north is in the center.
Right, exactly. So
yeah,
that's what I was going to ask you real quick. The Raven podcast, where he said there's been more than one Polaris throughout history.
Oh yeah, that's science's answer to the North Star problem.
And the star trails that you had covered in one of your videos, right? Instead of the stars
problem, going
all around, that they actually do.
I'll be right back.
Yeah. He's going to go tell his handler
like Raven. That's
what's going
He's
on.
Out.
I figured it out.
It's funny because all of the questions that flat earthers, that myself, that we've asked, like what's so insane is like, I know I'm not stupid. I'm not just going to take a flat earth video's word for it. I would take the questions that really got to me and I would look up, what is science's answer for this? And so the question that you're talking about as far as Polaris goes is, why is it that the Earth is spinning around 1,000 miles an hour at the equator, as they say, once per day? It's spinning at about 66,000 miles an hour around the sun, or I should say revolving around the sun. So it goes around once a year. Meanwhile, the sun and the Earth, it's dragging all the planets at about 500,000 miles around the Milky Way. And yet the North Star never moves. It's never changed. It's, if you're, it's quoted in the Bible that they followed the North Star to Bethlehem. You look at the Georgia Guidestones. At the top of the Georgia Guidestones, there's a hole that marks where the North Star is. You look at Mayan temples where they marked the North Star. It's not something that changes every season or every 5 years. It's always there. So the question is if we're making all those movements, how come the North Star is not moving? That makes no sense. And so science's answer is that the North Star changes every 26,000 years. And 13,000 years ago or whatever, it was a different star. It was such and such star. And 13,000 years from now, it's going to be, it's a T word. I forgot the name of it. It's not going to be Polaris. It's going to be a different one. And it's like, how can anyone verify any of this stuff? We're not going to be around 13,000 years from now to prove them wrong. So they're pulling answers out of their rear ends is what they're doing.
Who is?
The powers that be, science. When it comes to the North Star not moving, they claim that it does move. It just takes 26,000 years to move. And it's BS. All of it's BS.
Science is the only thing, that and being a weatherman, where you could be wrong and still have a job and still be looked at as someone who knows what they're talking about. Because science is all based on theory. What's right today is going to be wrong tomorrow, but today everyone's presenting it as fact when it's not an actual fact.
Yeah, I've got a great point that what you said just reminded me of, and this is, again, it's another circumstantial thing, but it speaks volumes to me, and that is, so even Einstein noted that geocentric Earth, meaning an Earth that is not spinning with the planets and the sun and moon going around it, would be no different, according to observation and what we see, would be no different than the heliocentric model. What he was saying is that from Earth, looking up at the sun, looking up at the moon, kind of like a car on the highway. If you're looking out your passenger window and you see a car going backwards, are you going forward or is it moving backwards, right? There's no way to tell unless you can take yourself out of it and actually see what's going on. So the question is this: what would it take to prove if we're going around the sun or if the sun's going around us? Well, they couldn't have known this until 1969, when we left and supposedly left the planet and went up to the moon, right? That would be the one way to verify. Yes? Correct. Everybody would agree with that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Then how come we taught the globe Earth starting in the 1700s as a fact, not a theory, not a guess, but as a fact? Why did they start teaching it to kids all over the world, not one country, but all over the world for nearly 300 years before we could even prove it?
Because J.P. Morgan and the Rothschild had stock in a globe-making company, and
they had a small globe shop.
Yeah. It might not be a bad. It's not a bad theory.
Beginnings of that Fire Club and all that kind of secret society to get to Illuminati. And we talked on our Giants podcast on Darwinism getting into the Smithsonian and kayfabe and the truth about giants. They just as easily could have done all that plenty of bullshit if they wanted to as well at the same time.
It's a funny thing. Joe Rogan used to be somebody that would have these kinds of discussions all the time, and I bring it back to him just because I've seen just a 180, kind of a huge shift in his podcast, because one of the most famous arguments out there on YouTube now is Eddie Bravo, who's a flat earther, who talked, and he always brings them on about conspiracies, but there's this one in particular, went on for a good hour, where Eddie Bravo was making the points, one about NASA faking the moon landing, and Joe Rogan said, well, those are different people. That was like, he was coming up with really crazy, he was almost outsmarting himself like Raven did in a way. He would come up with things that just didn't, it's just like, what did your friend say? Call it word salad. He's just saying words. Word salad, And the other thing was that Eddie Bravo referenced Einstein and the thing you just talked about with Einstein, and then a couple other quotes. And then he had the audacity to say, well, Einstein was just not really that smart, and Lawrence Krauss and these other guys today are much smarter than Einstein. Like, started burying Einstein, which he's still kind of revered in education, I would assume at this point. And then he would just say things, I guess, that most people say, like, we're having an honest discussion, and we may still not be convinced after you get off the show, Curious Jay, but we're having a discussion. But everybody else gets so, like you said, this is the new 9/11, where people get like really offended and take it personally if you even bring it up. It's so crazy. The cognitive, I can't even say the word. Can you say
it?
Fuck everyone.
And really, just in the last 48 hours, like
the concussion dissonance.
The FU crowd of small minds who don't want to research, just be like, oh, they're so stupid, you idiots, and not look at any of the possibilities or probabilities, because we were just coming off of this eclipse, and I saw tons of tweets of like, in your face, those stupid flat earthers, to take heat that way. But then there is explanation of rotation where it would come in path with that and align X amount of time. So if you have, two hands on a watch going at different speeds, obviously they're going to be right X amount of times. And there's always, and even as much, I hate to use him as a source as well, Neil deGrasse Tyson said that plenty of eclipse happens all the time. It's just not where you can see them, which is very
funny. Thing is, in all the animations, at least 99% of them, except for one I think I saw, that the Earth is rotating the wrong way. You figure they would get that right if they're doing an official animation for it.
Yeah, I kind of stay quiet on social media when I see these things get thrown up. But I mean, I couldn't count how many times I saw somebody throw up something that said, "Oh, solar eclipse," for this ought to shut the flat earthers up, or that sort of thing. Like this was the, and I'm, for anyone who and I don't mean any disrespect,
You're putting them over by even mentioning them.
Yeah, you are, right?
themselves.
Yeah, you should have taken the Vents road and just don't even acknowledge the competition.
Right.
But what's ironic about it is like, for anyone who is listening, who has thought that way, like solar eclipse, take that, flat Earth. I got a couple questions for him really quick. And that is, number one, how can a 2,000-mile wide moon make a 70-mile wide, clearly defined shadow? This is opposite of how light works. If you take your hand and you get your iPhone light, turn your flashlight on your iPhone, put your hand on the table, right? And shine the light down at it. Now raise your hand up towards the light. The shadow of your hand will always be the same size as your hand or larger. You can't make a little small mini shadow of yourself.
And
so
how about,
again,
I was gonna say, isn't the light from the moon measurable as far as temperature wise, and actually when the shadows of the moon are even higher in temperature than the light from the moon coming back, which tells of the reflection of the sun really isn't that off of the moon and beaming it back down like a mirror. It seems like the light rays of the moon would be warmer, like that.
You would think so if it's if it's reflected sun rays like they tell us. I sent you guys a picture, and anyone can Google like a 3D sphere. And one thing to note is in that, if you scroll back and look at the chat, I sent you guys a picture of a blue sphere, and it's obviously digitally animated or whatever, but you see the what we call the hot spot where the light hits it, right?
Yep.
And gives it the 3D look. Why don't we ever see that on the moon? If it's a 3D sphere, it should have a hot spot on it. So in addition to part of it being lit up one night, it should be like shaded, but instead the moon is evenly lit all throughout. Whether it's a half moon or a full moon, it is bright from the top to the bottom, left to the right. You never see this 3D hotspot on the moon. There's so many things about the moon that I'm just like, pfft. And one thing that I really appreciate about the flat Earth side of things is this. I would rather live in a world where certain questions can't be answered, than to live in a world where answers can't be questioned.
Oh, that's deep.
Nice.
Yeah, right? I read that somewhere, and I was
got Stevie confused over there.
Only Sith talks in absolutes, right?
That's right, baby.
In science, they encourage testing and hypothesizing and thinking out of the box, except when it comes to sun, moon, earth stuff. If you even, bring up the notion in science that the moon is not a sphere, you're going to lose your job. You're going to be laughed out of the class, whatever it is. But we are not allowed to question the basics.
It's a Death Star. That's
maybe it is.
Do you believe that, that it is kind of that Freemason map where we are in a concave reality, and, where the oceans are encompassed, and that there is that Game of Thrones ice wall that surrounds everything to kind of keep everything in a bowl, kind of, no matter how the oceans.
I think that the only problem with that, and I think David mentioned this on our show a week or two ago, the only problem with that is it brings up the Game of Thrones ice wall connotation, when in fact all you need is a shoreline to keep water in. I mean, why doesn't water come on to the U.S.? Why doesn't the Atlantic?
To me is just more predictive programming. It's more preparation.
Yeah, it's and plus, it could be, but I think it's easy to envision when people say the word ice wall. So I don't like to say ice wall rather than, Antarctica is frozen and it's mostly ice, obviously, but it's simply a shoreline. It's a shore around the edge. It's a pizza crust. Yep. That's holding the oceans in. And you mentioned earlier, Papadon, about what's underneath the Earth, and there's some diagrams where it looks like a chunk of a meteor. I don't think anyone in the flat Earth, real flat Earth researchers we won't begin to answer that question. I don't know. No one, I'm not afraid to say, I don't know what's underneath. I don't know. But the problem is that science is afraid to say they don't know. They have to give an answer. They've given us all in our textbooks that little diagram where they cut out a quarter of the sphere and they show you the core and the mantle and the crust, you know, the red, yellow, orange crap. The deepest hole we've ever drilled into the earth is 8 miles. And the diameter top to bottom of the globe is 8,000 miles. So we've drilled 1,000th of the way through the earth. And yet we're going to put in every third grader's textbook, we're going to put that core, mantle, crust as a fact. Do you know how we got that? They sent sonar waves into the earth and measured the readings coming back. What? You know, that's nowhere near definitive as to what the core of the earth is made of.
And well, it's also the same way. Go ahead.
I just think about the Mexico, those massive caverns with those huge crystals in them that look like, you know, straight out of Superman's Cave of Solitude there, whatever it is. Like, I don't know if you've seen that. Like,
yeah, Bin Laden's Cave of Solitude. Sorry.
It's a good time.
It's Fortress. Why didn't you correct him, Papadon? You're a huge Superman fan.
Superman's
because I figured you'd interrupt him like you interrupted everyone else in this episode, but whatever.
Go back to your Cave of Solitude.
Go and get out of
here. Here's a good one for you guys. We're told that the Earth's magnetism comes because we have a liquid molten iron core, right? But there's this other little thing in science, because what I found when researching this is so many times where the left hand doesn't agree or contradicts what the right hand is saying. So there's also something known as a Keurig point, and it's Keurig. This
makes cold coffee.
Yes, right? It's K-cups. But in science, this is the point at which a metal melts and loses its magnetism. Well, iron melts at a certain, iron loses its magnetism at a temperature way lower than what they say that the molten core is, right? So how are we still a magnet if it has melted past its Keurig point?
Right, to spin that way.
You know, there's so many things like this. It's like, and I don't expect to convince you guys that the earth is flat in this conversation. What I like to convince people of is to research this stuff. It's like 9/11. Don't, think back to when you first learned about 9/11 and you're trying to tell your uncle about it. Look, I'm not trying to convince you that so-and-so did it or that the U.S. is in on it. I'm trying to convince you to research the official story and ask yourself if it makes sense.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't make sense. It's a bigger conspiracy theory than the actual conspiracy theories about it.
Right. It's sillier. The legitimate story, or sorry, what do you call it? The inside, the official story. Yeah, the official narrative is sillier than the conspiracy. And that is exactly the conclusion I came to after about 12 months of hardcore research into flat versus globe, because I tried to sit down and prove the globe. I didn't want to.
Jay, let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Just so the listeners can follow us, because when we talk to each other, sometimes we leave out details because we're all on the same wavelength. Mindset. Because we all do our research. We all watch our videos. We all question everything. So we all go down these rabbit holes at times. So when you mention something, then it sparks something in my mind or Ben's mind or Stevie's mind, and then it leads to something else, and then it basically, we can correlate and put things together and see what you're talking about without going into full detailed discussion and boring everybody. So right. My question is, and this is for not me questioning you, because what you're saying, everything right now, I fully, I'm there with you, brother. I know what you're talking about, and I ask the same questions, and you're making great valid points. But here's a couple of things. Why would we be lied to? Tell the listeners why you feel we're being lied to this whole time. Well, why would NASA? Why would the Masons? Why would the Illuminati? Why would the three-eyed blinky fish from The Simpsons lie to us about the Earth being round and not telling us that the Earth is flat?
Yeah, everyone who hears about this, once they hear a few points that they like kind of get some thinking, the next inevitable question is why and who, right? Exactly. Who's keeping it from us and why? And look, it goes back to the questions that can't be answered. I don't know.
Okay.
I can tell you what the theories are out there, and I subscribe to a little bit of the theories, and that is like, whether you are religious or you are atheist, doesn't matter. Kind of like with wrestling. I don't need to be a wrestling fan to know that Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan was the epitome of 80s, 90s feud in wrestling, right?
Yeah, those are the two top guys in the 80s, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who's the better guy, right? The one's the WWF, the other NWA. Like, I don't even have to be a fan to realize that there was probably some competitive heat there, and it was, the one-upsmanship. I don't need to be religious or atheistic to recognize the fact that science versus religion is the oldest feud that we know of.
Yalla.
It's longer running than countries. It's longer running than, the individual religions. Science versus religion, they have been trying to outdo each other for centuries, right? And so when people ask why, one of the answers people give to the why and who is the fact that this is simply science trying to kill religion. And by going to a globe Earth with an infinite vacuum of space and making us a very small, insignificant speck of dust in a sea of whatever, we're not special. We weren't created. It was a big bang. It was energy. It was whatever. So that's one argument, is that they're trying to basically, when you stop and look, because that argument has its merit. When you look at dinosaurs, evolution, and the Big Bang, starting with globe, Copernicus saying that we're going around the sun, and then evolution, and then dinosaurs, and the Big Bang. Look at those four things. They effectively are the nail in the coffin to the Old Testament and how the Bible and the Quran say we were created and whatever. So that's one argument. The other argument is just simply control. It's an elite group of people that are trying to keep us imprisoned. I mean, what if there is land past Antarctica? Go back to the discovery of the New World, America, and what happened with England and the colonies. So ask yourself today, what if they did find continents and continents past Antarctica, right? Would they let us go?
Yeah,
would they let us
crumble?
Would they let us settle it? Would they let us claim land and open businesses and be free from the system here?
I'm going to bring up a quick point here about information. You're talking about controlling the information and everything. I just happened to look at some YouTube stuff on the channel. Then we put up the Conspiracy Horsemen on my YouTube channel. They demonetized it with the new yellow $ icon. They created a brand new icon to say, you're not demonetized, but we have to limit it because it has whatever. It has some controversial content. So now, since the last episode was hit with that yellow one, they're hitting all of my videos. I did a tripod review that hadn't even been put live yet, and it's got the yellow icon. It was private. So how do you know that it's got something in it, a tripod? That's all it was. Just showing you that.
Fuck you.
Dude,
next time put your pants on during the video and there won't be a tripod video.
And Google's definitely got
thank you very much.
And on all of it with Google Earth, I mean that just reinforces everything.
What I'm saying is that is like, not to go so far off on that, but that's sort of like putting you in that line of a metaphorical mark of the beast. Like, hey, if you want to make money with YouTube, you better fall in line and do business.
Yep.
Don't talk openly, because now that just right there. And there was another one. Another one that hadn't went live yet. It's not even public. Was me talking to Digital Trends about Fire Pro Wrestling, about a video game, and it got marked with a yellow $.
You're on the most wanted list.
I think they want a green to sell more, right? If they got a hitch in it, but no, you're out. You've been flagged. You're on. I'm
on the watch list.
Once you're on the list, that's it.
Fly list. Yeah, you're no fly list for everybody on this show. So
yeah. No soup for you.
That's right.
No soup for you.
The biggest thing for me going home with this is
I made him laugh.
If you want to see a good one, check out the gyroscope flat Earth experiment. That one's pretty strong, where it should rotate with the Earth and a pen attached to it, and it
doesn't.
So,
we can go down the rabbit hole over and over and over again. Here's a question. Now you're talking about the plane stuff. How do pilots, how do people within the aviation industry, how do they account not only for going east, west, west, east as far as flight times, but also the curvature with the dip?
Yeah, going over a ball, flying around a ball.
Yeah, exactly.
And And I have heard both sides of this argument. The flat earthers say you'd have to nose down every few minutes to keep from going into space, right? And then I've also heard the pilots say, no, this and that accounts for this, and it's so gradual you can't feel it. Let me tell you something. And I was listening to a pilot of 40 years talking on one of the podcasts, or he was being interviewed, but he was saying the mechanics of an airplane would be completely different. Flying would be completely different if we were flying around a ball, period. But we're not. We're flying on a flat surface. And it's very interesting when you start looking into builders and surveyors. They treat the land, they are told to treat the land as a flat datum, as a flat section of land. When you talk to guys who make railroad tracks that go for miles, tunnels, bridges, my dad was a civil engineer, and when I brought this topic up to him, he thought I was crazy, naturally. And and then when we started talking about, I said, Dad, you're in the civil engineering business, and he, for 50 years was in charge of projects that would lay pipeline across long areas of land. And I said, when you guys did the pipeline across Saudi Arabia back in 1980,
yes,
how many miles was that? Couple hundred miles, 300 miles or so. And I said, Dad, did you ever have to factor in the curvature of the earth when you were building that pipeline? And he just stopped. He was dead silent. He said, no. I said, have you ever even heard of the curvature of the earth formula? He's a civil engineer that builds things that go hundreds of miles across the surface of the earth. You would have to factor in the curve of the earth, but they don't. They treat it as a flat plane. And man, when I started learning all this stuff, that was just like, whoa, that was heavy for me.
Just another infidel crushed.
Just an update.
Couple of points.
An update real quick. Every single Conspiracy Horsemen episode has been flagged.
Yes.
Just quick.
Well, they're definitely flagging this one, guys. Heads up.
You morons, YouTube,
We're
Google,
doing
I'll
it
go
correct.
there and smash your stupid little. I'm the flavor of the month moron. I don't care what teenager makeup video you've got out there making money. The Conspiracy
My wife's
Horsemen.
watching those right now.
Nice.
It's big into me. Go ahead, Papadon. I'm sorry.
things
I'm
I want
sorry.
to hear Papadon's couple points.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. Well, first thing is, I saw the other day an argument for flat Earth. They were saying that the yin-yang symbol is basically a symbol of flat Earth because of the white circle is the moon, and it basically covers the black area, which is the night, and the black circle is the sun, and the white part is the light. So I found that very interesting.
And black and white Freemason floors.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, second thing is, and this is a point that I wanted to make for against flat Earth. Everyone knows about the pyramids, right? Everyone knows about the hieroglyphics on the pyramids from ancient aliens. There's depicting that there's pictures of astronauts and helicopters on the pyramid.
Avians.
How can it be?
So they got him.
Got him.
Yep.
He's
And
too
you two
relaxed.
hacks talk shit.
There he is.
Say that again. We lost you.
Cut out for a minute. Showing his arms off, thinking he's big as shit. He ain't that big. Look at that. That's what you see at NYWC.
He's frozen in his pose there. Yeah.
Yeah, your leash is not driving around. I mean,
And I think he paused at ancient Egypt with the astronauts and that sort of thing. And so, yeah, I mean, I've always, like I say, I flew over the Nazca lines back in the day, back in 2008, because I wanted to see the carvings, and there's that, especially that one that looks like a darn astronaut,
Yeah.
And I always have thought there's something to that, and I still do. But now I just ask myself, was this a group of people that visited them from a land past Antarctica?
Yeah, I think that holds a lot of weight with me, man. And the John Brahma, Jimmy Brahma thing is John Brahma, right? And when I saw that picture, it did look computer generated. But if that is true, and you can go through, and then look who's visited down there, from Obama to John Kerry recently, like Masons themselves.
Yeah, why are they always going down there?
To see something like, oh, I just wanted to go down and ski the freaking.
I think we can all agree on this. Whether the Earth is flat, round, hollow, whether the aliens are coming from something is up with Antarctica.
Yeah,
It's like at the core of every conspiracy there is.
From Atlantis to the new pyramids
Yeah.
to Nazi bases to
So we can't go there now.
Well, it's the only treaty that has never been broken in the world's history.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
the United States is famous for if there was stuff to be gotten down there, we're going to get it.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. To the Foo Fighters, kick the shit out of Admiral Brody.
Bring some freedom.
I always say, besides North Korea, there's 3 places we can't go: the North Pole, the South Pole, and space.
Yeah.
I mean, why is that? You know, it's 2017. If we want to get in a boat, go down to Antarctica and go hiking, we should be able to do it, right?
Yeah.
But we can't.
I got the snowmobiles. I'm ready to rock the expedition on this bitch. And how about the 20 that did go down there that from South America that all came up missing, you know, as well. So continually, as that is the gateway to some truth of our past or a polar shift or what happened, because obviously that had to be some type of Atlantean, you know, Mecca at some time now covered in ice fully. It's definitely a strange part of the whole story, but I think we should wrap it up here. If there's anything else, Curious Jay.
Hey, what the hell did Stevie do to me and cut me off?
They cut you off.
Stevie, what did you do? What free email did you send out to cut me off?
I don't know. I think your Charlie Brown shirt just overloaded the Skype call.
Listen, my Charlie Brown shirt's far more superior than your wife's shirt that you're wearing. So
but not as superior to the Conspiracy Horsemen shirt.
Good plug. Great plug. By the way, Stevie, I love you.
I love you too, Papadon.
Listen, what I was saying is, where did I get cut off?
Oh yeah, go ahead and finish, because we answered it, but we didn't know what you were saying.
Helicopters on the pyramids or something?
Okay, what I was saying is, for the pyramids, how they did on the hieroglyphics, how they depict, like for ancient astronauts, they're saying that they have pictures of astronauts and helicopters and airplanes, and that stuff didn't exist back then. So it's kind of funny how the hieroglyphics have that present, and also now how they're saying that people in Egypt had advanced technology back in the day, because pictures of the hieroglyphics in the pyramids show them using some kind of light source, which wasn't torches, because there's no soot in the pyramids, right? So they had a picture of in the pyramids of our solar system, and all the solar systems and the sizes of the planets and everything, they were all round. Even Earth, the sun, the moon. Earth had a moon. Jupiter had
they were circles.
They were all circles, yeah. So they were round. So,
but were they spheres?
See, this is where the rabbit hole gets 3D. I love it. I'm just saying.
You know, like a guy did a great video.
2D, very good.
Where he researched the Hebrew text and the original words that were used when they said in the Bible. They said that the Creator carved out the circle of the earth, and then that has been adapted to mean circle, sphere. There you go. It's a ball. But he was great at pointing out the fact that in Hebrew, earlier in the same chapter of Isaiah, they used the Hebrew word for a ball, and it is completely different than the Hebrew word for circle, which is a flat circle. And he chose to use the circle word rather than the ball word when they said that. And I don't like to use Bible as an argument for flat earth, because I think it can be proven with or without the Bible. I mean, completely. But it does come to mind, like the whole circle part. You know, there's a big difference between a circle and a sphere.
Very well put. Are you religious by any chance, or are you an atheist like Uncle Ben over here?
No, personally, I am. I'm not an active, I got little kids, so it's been a minute since I've been to a church, and I'm not really big on the established religions, so to speak.
Oh, neither am I. I have faith and I believe in religion. I just don't believe in the establishment of religion.
Yeah, I'm with you. And it kind of goes back to what I said at the beginning, where man is corruptible. I mean, I just don't think that there's a church out there that could say they're immune to corruption because they're a church. I don't think science is immune to it. I don't think any government is immune to it. If not kept in checks and balances, every government, every church, every group of scientists will end up being corrupt.
And unfortunately, the citizens or the people in the country or the world, whatever, are now doing lazy fact-checking. They're having the fact-checking done for them by the mainstream media. So people are just sitting back and nobody's holding anybody's feet to the fire. That's the thing that's really weird, is that something's up, whether it is on the one end with a secret space program, aliens, something being hidden from us, one end of the spectrum or the other. What they're saying in the middle is happening is not happening. So
Right.
I just hope whatever happens in our lifetime that we kind of see it exposed.
Yeah, I agree there. And there's 2 points that I want to bring up before we roll out. And number one has to do with what you just said, Stephen. That is, I think it's important to note, because I had to do this myself whenever I got into this flat earth and really started questioning everything. One of the things that I had to question was what I had learned and what I'd come to think about the UFO phenomenon. And I had to ask myself, wait a second, what is the only 2 sources, once again, that have connected the UFO phenomenon to outer space? There's 2. NASA with their, let's turn the camera off when this thing goes by, and Hollywood. I mean, think about it. When the naval security officer reports a UFO sighting, he's not reporting that it came from Centurion 2 trillion miles away. He's reporting what he saw right here. So the only connection from these craft that I believe there's something to it, the only connection to outer space came from NASA with their quote unquote slip ups, or are they? And Hollywood, period. That's the only 2. And the other thing I wanted to touch on really quick, because I think I heard you guys mention it a few weeks ago on one of your shows, and it's a knee-jerk reaction for a lot of people in the conspiracy world to say, flat earth is a psyop. Flat earth is a psyop. And I wanted to touch on that really fast before we go, because I think it's important to note that I've never been a subscriber to that theory, because I think it's crazy for a group in the government to make up something like the flat earth to discredit the truth movement or whatever, and actually include, and then when you look into it, it does more to discredit the government than anything else. Like, I think if it was a psyop, they would throw us something that doesn't make them look bad, just makes you look crazy. And the other reason I can say without a shadow of a doubt now, no, it's not a psyop. If they were trying to discredit, let's say, the truthers, if they were trying to cast all these 9/11 guys as flat earth lunatics, right? Then when the Kyrie stuff hit the news and the shit hit the fan a few months back, why didn't they tie it to 9/11? That was their opportunity. Yeah. If this was a psyop, if they were planting a flat earth seed to make all the truth people look crazy, then when Kyrie Irving or Shaq or whoever else came forward and said, I think the earth is flat, they would have said, oh yes, just like the 9/11 truthers. They would have linked it together right then, and mission accomplished. And then I think there would have been some credibility to the psyop theory, but that didn't happen.
They tried to bust AJ Styles' balls too on talking smack about it when it first started as well.
Yeah, is he a flat earther?
Imagine they had some locker room convo, and then Daniel Bryan tried to call him out like that.
Yeah,
you see him kind of clam up a little bit, but
yep.
Not that AJ's got any more knowledge than us phony ass workers got, but it was interesting of like, oh, let's not get the message out. That's where the psyop part is in my mind a little bit.
The weirdest thing was the Raven. I know we're going to keep going on and on because this is a fascinating topic to keep discussing. Raven surprised me for a guy so smart to once again outsmart himself to say that maybe NASA put the wires on the astronauts to make those people believe that the Earth is flat, to trick them as a trolling thing. Dude, it was when he came up with that, it was crazy.
Maybe his MK Ultra kicked in. That's why.
He's in Mensa. He's in Mensa, so maybe they're connected.
Super smart dude,
yeah. And I told Dave that too. I said Raven's a smart guy. Hopefully he'll come around to at least open it up to research it himself, because I'm no Mensa, but I'm not a dummy, and I'm smart enough to weigh the facts and actually research them. And I take nobody's word for anything, whether it's a missile in the Pentagon or the curvature of the Earth. And Stevie will vouch for me on this. I've watched a million videos that show that we're seeing things in the distance we shouldn't be able to see. With the curve of the Earth curving down, if it's curving like a ball, we shouldn't be able to see something 25 miles away. I don't just take word for it. I go out, I bring my camera, and I test it for myself. And, yeah, I hope Raven and other guys out there that are looking into this will actually give it a chance to look into it, because when you do, I think you'll be shocked.
I have a higher IQ than Raven, by the way.
Actually, you know what? I saw a video on YouTube. This one guy says we can prove this theory and make it a fact. Real simple. And it was an easy test that he can do it, but nobody's willing to. I think he has a Kickstarter to try to fund this experiment. Basically, what it is you put a pole up on one part of the earth, where your starting point, and then you take wooden planks, and every few feet, whatever it is, every couple 100 feet or whatever, you put another pole up, and you connect the plank, the two poles with a plank. The top plank should be a level plank. You know, you put a level on it to sea level, because if the earth is flat, then it'll be level, right?
Right.
Then the second thing you'll put it following adjacent to the ground of the earth. Now, sooner or later, the curvature should kick in. The top plank should stay straight, and the bottom plank should eventually give you a bigger difference in distance between the top plank and the bottom plank. Yeah, if it's a globe. But if it's not, and it keeps staying level over a certain amount of space and miles, then you know the Earth is flat.
Yeah, we need a 5 mile straight edge.
Yeah,
we need a 5 mile ruler.
Well, you got the salt flats, 100 miles of flat though, so they can try to disprove that. They can also do another quick thing that every flat earther has said: turn the Hubble around and get a picture of Earth. So
well, guys, you saw how huge, whether you got into it personally or not, you saw how huge this eclipse was a couple days ago, right? The solar eclipse. So NASA gets $50 million a day, and you're going to tell me, and they've supposedly got all kind of robots up there on the moon. Why didn't we get the moon view of the eclipse? Why didn't we get a view of the Earth with the shadow on it?
Yeah, where was the
moon?
Where was the Discover thing at? No, I'm just asking. I'm truly asking.
They still have it up there. They just don't like to advertise it because it's been busted so many times.
No, but when you want the Discover to get a shot of the eclipse, it got a shot of the moon coming across,
and to see the shadow of the totality going across the Earth. But I mean, you could do it. You wouldn't even need the Discover, which is supposedly 1 million miles away. All you would need to do is use one of those robots or Hubble. Just turn it around.
Well, maybe because like we were saying before, maybe there are no satellites. Maybe there isn't there to take a picture.
I agree. I think that's the case. Well, I don't think Hubble's up there.
Yeah, I mean, it could definitely be a work. Now, they're saying that the Mars rover is a work because really it's on an island in New Zealand.
Greenland,
Greenland. I think it was Devon Island or Devon Island or whatever you want to call it.
I'm going to go with Devon just because of the show.
Yeah. So there you go. So you never know.
So there you go, infidels, and that's right. You don't need a 5 mile ruler because you've got the ruler bin Hamin and the Conspiracy Horsemen riding down upon you, and you can take our word for it. And thanks to Curious Jay coming on to ride out as the 4 horsemen today on this flat earth conspiracy crushing episode of the Conspiracy Horsemen. Curious Jay, let us know what you got going on, where people can find you on YouTube before you're demonetized.
I have you're right. I have a very small channel with a couple things on there. It's just Curious Jay on YouTube, but you can check us out. We put out a weekly episode, David and I, called the Flat Earth Podcast. And I appreciate you guys having me on. And anytime you guys get bored and want to talk Flat Earth, hit me up, and we'll David and I'll call you, and we'll record an episode of the Flat Earth Podcast of us talking to you guys about it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for coming on. Stevie Cool, what do you got? Who are you stretching this week, and who's catching heat on social media for Colby Covington?
We're continuing our training. We were going to announce our next fight officially this week between this show and next show, and I'll be home this weekend, but then traveling again and doing the training with him, then going straight to New Orleans, then straight back to training, and then I might have to get my passport updated. That's a little hint about where we might be fighting, so... It's good stuff. I'm actually on the training regimen he's on right now, outside of the striking and jiu-jitsu. So strength and conditioning stuff. I'm 8 weeks. I'm on the 8-week out one right now, trying to drop weight.
Wow.
Trying to cut weight for absolutely no reason. So that's about it. And yes, another video has been demonetized as we sit and talk here. What the fuck, man? I'm just there's a protein shake video where I am giving protein powder or protein shake to my cat Mia, and that is demonetized because not suitable
Animal
for all
cruelty.
advertisers.
It's animal cruelty.
That's it.
There's one here that says not suitable because there's a fucking Greek on the show. Yeah, well, that one not gonna request a review on that one.
Listen,
sorry,
bro,
they got a point there.
All I know is ever since we came up with the logo and I drew that bad boy and we've started this, the ratings have gone through the roof. Everyone loves the Greeks, especially Demetrius over there in Dippin' Donut Land.
Yeah, he's coming home soon. And he's been on the beach, even blasting Conspiracy Horsemen. Shout out to Demetrius Zardos and waking up the Greeks who've been asleep. Maybe you can rebuild that country, get the Parthenon back up.
I can't wait to see Stevie in the octagon, and then when he gets face to face with Rogan, fucking put his tail between his legs and not say a fucking word.
Yes,
that's
because
right. You're on the shit list, Rogan.
I have a 100. That's a 100% chance of happening.
What, you not saying a goddamn word?
No, I'm going to say something. Of course I'm going to say something. I'm going to
dedicate
the victory. I'm going to dedicate the victory to flat earther Eddie Bravo. That's what I'm going to say.
There you go.
Nice. And you better put over the podcast.
You will be so over with the flat earth folks if you did that. That would be so huge.
But Eddie Bravo is a great, people think he's nuts, but I love the fact that he looks into everything and researches. And that's really what this is all about. Whether we agree or disagree, we have the discussion, and I wish more people would do that.
Yeah, for sure, man. GGP, what do you got, man? Let them know.
Well, tomorrow night, the people in Deer Park, Long Island, are going to be very, very happy because they're going to be in the company of the Greek God Papadon and Bin Hamin, two of the horsemen in the same place at NYWC, as I bitch smack that fruitcake Big O and take his fusion title at the NYWC Sportatorium tomorrow night, and then watch my buddy Bin Hamin stretch out that pom-pom Mike Mondo and make him submit and say Ya Allah. And
that's right. You could even bring Teddy Long down and make it a tag match, and we're still going over strong.
That's right. Heels over strong 24/7, 365 twice on Sunday. And then let's see what's next 16th of September, ECWA 50th anniversary show in Delaware, Five Borough Wrestling on the 22nd, NWA, Big Apple on the 23rd. That's all I have off the top of my head. I can't remember anything else because of my wrestling.
That's right. NYWC are about to be invaded by Hacker Hamin, so bring your $5 for a face slap, moron, so I can smack the shit out of you and you'll stop playing with beach balls at a wrestling show, you stupid idiots. And then I'm off to UPW on the 9th at Upstate Pro Wrestling for the Elite 8 tournament, and then back to defend my Dynasty Tag Team Championships in the Dam of Amster. That's right, Albany. I'm coming for you to crush your capital, and I will be victorious once again. And you can hop over to Pro Wrestling Tees at almost any of our stores and get the Conspiracy Horsemen official shirt, and maybe I might just spare you infidels. Big thanks again to Curious J riding out. Big Sal will hopefully have you on next week. And y'all law infidels, this is the Flat Earth Podcast, controversial and always enlightening. Y'all law.